New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge, on the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here on The Growing Edge. The Growing Edge is this place we all hang out, the growing edge of our own becoming. We're all on this evolutionary journey. And here at The Growing Edge, I love to have conversations with soul-centered individuals that are channeling their time, their talents, their energy, their resources, their love, their creativity into doing good works in the world, really making a difference. And today I am having a conversation with my dear friend, Elaine Louise Stewart. I'm going to read a little bit about Elaine. There she is, for those of you that are watching the video. Elaine has had a few careers in her life, and this last one is something she had never done before, becoming an entrepreneur and creating her own online business, coaching business. She is a certified health coach, an Enneagram coach, a licensed teacher of the art of feminine presence, embodiment practices. She is a licensed naturopathic doctor in the state of Arizona and a published author. And I happen to have her book here, Courage to Trust, Transform Your Relationship with Fear. Welcome, Elaine. It's so good to have you on Growing Edge.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellie. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Elaine and I met a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and we were in a course together, taking our, getting our license to become Enneagram coaches. Certifications, I guess, would be the right word. Anyway, we did a deep dive through that training together, many times to be in classroom, online, and also we would gather every few months in person and do real deep dives for a whole year. And so we really got to know each other. We both are familiar with our Enneagram types, me being a 4, Elaine being a 6. And for those of you that understand what that means, you'll be hearing some of that within our conversation. So Elaine, where are you today?
You mean, where am I physically?
Yeah, where are you physically?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. And it has been, it's been cool here. It's been chilly. It's taken a long time to get the temperature down, because of global warming and all that other stuff. And it's just getting hotter and hotter. And we've had some tremendously hot summers, and they're only going to get worse. But now it's cool, and we're very excited about it. It's getting all the way down to, 67 or 68, Sometimes it's really cold in the morning. It was 38 degrees, which is really cold for here.
Yeah, I don't think of Phoenix area being in the 30s, but I guess that happens.
It does.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So let's dive into, we heard about all the things you do, and we'll get to some of that. But I'd love to know about your origin story. Where did you grow up? And what was it like for you spiritually? Was your family religious? I'd love to dive into those things, your origin story, and then your spiritual journey.
Well, I was born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. I did leave for 32 years of my life and lived someplace else and eventually came back. I was an only child for the first 10 years of my life. And I, as far as spirituality goes, my father was a Mormon. And so, interestingly, neither of my parents were really practicing their religion, at that time. And when I was, well, occasionally we go and stay with my mother's parent. Like I would stay with her parents, my grandparents, and they're Catholic, and so they would take me to Catholic church. And I mean, I had no clue what was happening, but I put a doily on my head. That's what it seemed like to me. And then I didn't understand all of the the kneeling and the getting up and the kneeling and the getting up. And I mean, most of it went over my head because, I was just a little kid and I had not been really exposed to it before. And, we go to the gift shop and there'd be all these coloring books and things with Jesus's, face on it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I just was a little bit bewildered, let me put it that way. And then when I was probably like 10 or 11, my father decided that I should start going to primary, which is sort of like Sunday school, but it's on Wednesday afternoons. And again, not having any exposure to Mormonism, showing up at this, at this afternoon, this Wednesday afternoon class with children who knew a lot about, Joseph Smith and David O. McKay, all of it, right? They knew all of the articles of faith and all that stuff. And I didn't know anything. And I really felt out of place. I didn't connect with anybody. I felt like I was kind of bullied because I didn't know what was going on. And I just felt like I was at a loss. Both my parents were, okay. So, yeah. So, and then the other thing that was happening was whenever there was a conversation in the house that had anything to do with, God or Jesus or any of that kind of stuff, there was a lot of tension, in the house. And I really had no idea what all that was about, except that it just turned me off to all of it. Like I was like, oh, this is not a good thing, not a good thing for me. And then as I got older, in fact, much older, I learned from my mother that she had agreed to convert to Mormonism when they married, but then she changed her mind. And so that caused I think a lot of the tension and stuff, but really, honestly, I have no idea. You know what I mean? Because they didn't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been confusing as a little one, and you were only child at that time, and
Right.
exposed to two different traditions, but not really practicing or going, but just to be baptized or christened or whatever it's called in the Catholic Church. And then, yeah, it's funny. I reflect back on my husband's story with his family. His mother was had been married to a Christian Scientist, and so that whole philosophy. And Michael, my husband, is like a sponge, so he's always soaking things in. Even as a little one, he was picking up on all of that. And on his father's side of the family, because his parents got divorced, his dad was Catholic, and so they would go to Catholic church, and he was in, I think it's a CCD or catechism or that training or that Sunday school type of thing. And the nun asked him a question, who wrote the Bible? And Michael was very eager to answer the question, and he said Mary Baker Eddy, who is the the author of the founder of Christian Science. So it's funny what little kids pick up, and then how it confuses them around their spirituality. So that sounds like you had a bit of that confusion with the Mormonism and the Catholic faith too.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that happened, I don't think I really understood how much of an impact living in a certain religion and their beliefs and behaviors. Because in my mother's family, after, when people would get together, cousins and stuff, there was always like for a meal, who wants coffee after dinner? Everybody drink coffee. And I remember going to my my father's parents' house without him. He wasn't around. I mean, he was around, but he didn't participate in his own family. My mother took me over there. After we ate, I started walking around to everybody to see who wanted to have coffee. Now, you know anything about the Mormons, they don't drink coffee. They don't drink caffeine. They don't drink anything like that. And they were horrified.
Oh my goodness.
It's like I just had no idea. Kind of like what you're saying with Michael, he had no idea. Yeah. And then
just to catch you up these days, because I just went out to dinner with a young man from the church, the LDS church, and they can drink Coke products. I think because Coca-Cola is owned by a Mormon family. So the rules change as, life carries on and moves forward. So
yeah. That's funny. Yeah, that's interesting.
So you grew up in Arizona?
Yes. Yep.
And then you moved around in your, young adult life.
When I was 20, I moved down to Tucson, which is just a city south of Phoenix, about 120 miles. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and I moved down there to be with him. And then he got accepted to graduate school in Pullman, Washington. And so in 76, we moved up there together. And yeah, and so, yeah, were you going to say something?
Oh, it froze for a moment, so I was waiting to catch up. So, were you just sort of turned off from religion, spirituality? None of that what played out in your young adult world?
No, it did not. I mean, I actively avoided it because it was too, there was too much tension around it whenever it came up in the house. Just all of it was, I didn't trust it. I didn't like it. I didn't get anything from it. And it just made me feel really tense and uncomfortable. Now, we lived in Washington State for 6 years or 7 years, and we got married, and then we got divorced, and then I came back to Phoenix, and then I moved to Massachusetts, and I lived there for 18 years. And at that time, I started to at least do some personal discovery, getting into some meditation and philosophical things, like about life and all of that. And that's where I really started to find myself, I guess, or at least begin the search for myself and what life was about.
So in those, in those earlier years and young adult years, who had the biggest positive and or negative impact on you growing up as you think back?
So I guess one of the things I did when I was in Massachusetts was I signed up for LifeSpring, which was coming sort of out of the Est, all of that, and that helped me a lot. Like I'm not a victim, I can take care of myself and all of that, and that was more personal discovery. And I think that I was not interested in finding any kind of a spiritual thing until I moved from Massachusetts, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I was out walking one day, and right around the corner was a church of, a New Vision Center. That wasn't the name of it. The first church of, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a New Thought church. Mm-hmm. And so I started going there. And I was really, I got really excited about it because it was like so interesting to me, and I could relate to what was being said, and I kind of got my hair on fire, and just was really, I'd go there, all the time and get involved, and then I started, and of course Albuquerque is closer to Phoenix than Boston is, so I came back pretty regularly, and when I was here on the weekends, I would take my friend Margaret, and we would go to New Vision Center. So we would go there on the weekends that I was here, and then at the end of 2008, I moved back to Phoenix. We started going to that church pretty regularly.
Nice. So what did you?
And that just made so much.
Sorry, they were having a little tech freezing stuff going on. So when we'll circle back around, because I know that there is a spiritual component to some of the work you do. There's, at least there's meditation and things like that you weave in. And so we'll talk about that in a while. So your education, reading through your bio, certified health coach, doctor, naturopathic doctor. Talk a little bit about what you studied in university and how that has woven in or led you into different work and different jobs that you've had.
Well, I've had a lot of education. I mean, and I got a bachelor's degree in nutrition, and I worked here in Phoenix for a little bit, and then when I moved to Boston, I worked in a small hospital and mainly on an eating disorders unit. So that was very interesting. And then I got a master's in nutrition, and then I got a couple of other master's degrees. But when I came back to Phoenix, I came back because I got fired from my job in New Mexico. And I've never been fired from a job before. And I thought it was the worst possible thing that could have happened to me. And it turned out to be the biggest blessing of my life. I'm so grateful to be released from that job at the time that I was. And I came back to Phoenix, and it was the end of 2008. So the market was crashing. People were losing their homes. People were losing their jobs. I mean, it was really a very scary time, but I felt pretty safe because I had sold my house. I had some extra money. I was living in my mother's house with her, taking care of her, and she died about 6 months later. And then I was like, well, okay, what's next for me? And I heard a lot about naturopathic medicine. It kept coming up. It just kept coming up and coming up. And I was like, okay, this is coming up a lot. I should probably check this out. And so I went to the school, which was in Tempe, which is not far from here. And as I was listening to what they were talking about, I could see how it really came together. A lot of things came together for me. It was like a natural way to look at the whole person, the whole body. It wasn't just okay, oh, you have an eye thing, or oh, you have a hip thing, or oh, you have a kidney thing, and people became that. Okay, so you're a kidney, you're this. But in naturopathic medicine, it's holistic, right? So we want to look at the root cause, and we want to use nature and natural things that help heal people. And so that just kind of brought together a lot of the spiritual work that I was doing and my past experience and just where I was in my life at that time.
Mm-hmm. So you being a nutritionist, is that the right term? Earlier on, having a degree in that and working in that field, and then leaning into naturopathic medicine. How did you learn? I mean, you've got all of these degrees. You learned so much about probably more of the Western, more of the traditional path of nutrition and health through what we're ingesting. How did learning about naturopathic medicine change some of your views? What changed for you coming from a nutrition background to now naturopathic medicine?
Well, Boston is a very highly saturated medical facility place, right? Very, very traditional medicine, not traditional medicine, Western medicine, steeped in it all the way. And so coming here and then learning about naturopathic medicine, it was much more less dogmatic and more holistic, and some of the ideas were different. Like, for example, they believed that cholesterol problems was a fat intake problem, right? So they took out all the fat, like, fat-free this, fat-free that, and all of that. But the problem is that it's not fat, it's sugar that's the problem. And when you take out all the fat in a food, you add in sugar to keep the flavor. So it was just this sort of diametrically opposed thing, like really understanding, well, I guess, or having a different understanding of how the body works, and looking at it from a physiology standpoint, and what that anything that starts to go outside the box of that just becomes another question to answer, to say, well, what is really going on and what is really needed in this particular case?
It's so confusing, because I remember my son was ill for for a long time. For a couple of years, we were in hospital with him. And we were at Loma Linda Medical Center in Southern California, and they are Seventh-day Adventists. And so there was this, the food that was served in the hospital, and my son was 10 years old, and it's very hard to get him to eat anything. So we would speak to the nutritionist, and they would make a diet for him. But there was some restrictions based on their religion. And
Yep.
So it was interesting. I always have felt myself to be a fairly health conscious person, and try and eat organic foods. And I'm vegetarian. I've been vegan for some portions of my life. And so I naturally, when my children were little, I wouldn't give them things with added sugar. I tried to stay away from that. Was probably the biggest, thing in our household. And so people like me, and like everyone, we're told all these different things based on religion, based on where you live in the country, based on where you live in the world, based on what your family has told you. And so we're all given these ideas about what's healthy and what's not. And I think listening to the news and the trends of the day, back in the 70s, we were being told things, back in the 80s, we were being told other things. And so what's the truth, Elaine? What's the truth? What should we be eating and what should we not be eating? Is there some just basic core principles or premises that would be helpful for anyone wherever they live?
Well, I think some really general guidelines, obviously, is the less processed food you eat, the better, because there's a lot of additives. There's a lot of stuff in there that is not good. It doesn't work really well with our physiology. So our physiology has to work around it. And for some people, they tolerate being a vegetarian. and eating no animal products whatsoever, right? And that feels good to them. And it has to do with their terrain, their sort of their makeup, their genetic makeup. Some people have to have some sort of protein, some animal protein in their diet. And so it's really what's right for you. In terms, you do intermittent fasting? Do you eat one meal a day? Do you eat 6 meals a day? Whatever it is, whatever works for you. But the basic thing is, obviously, the more fruits and vegetables you have, this is our natural vitamins. This is what our bodies evolved to use. And it works really well with us. And, you just kind of go from there. But I think that where we run into problems is convenience, convenient foods that really save us time, but they have, like I said, they have a lot of additives in them, and they're not the healthiest, I would say, thing to eat. So that's about, I'm hardly an expert on it, but that's really what I have come to see, because and people who have, for example, have, high blood sugar or high blood pressure, there are certain things that they should probably stay away from or limit, and then sometimes those things are very hard for them to manage. But I think a basic understanding of what's happening, and then taking responsibility for doing the right thing for yourself, can keep you healthy for as long as possible.
Yeah. So how much of currently where you sit now with your being a doctor of naturopathic medicine, would you say health is based on diet? Is it based on other things to incorporate into your lifestyle? What are the core components of health, despite people having, diseases? Because should we be paying real close attention to the food, or is it more about making sure that we are taking the medicines and the drugs that are being prescribed? Can we combine Western medicine with naturopathic medicine? What's your, current thoughts on diet, Western medicine, and naturopathic medicine, as far as just optimum health for the average person that isn't, suffering from a major illness or something?
Well, I would say that it's our responsibility to do our best to take care of ourselves. Okay, so we can eat as healthily as we possibly can, definitely get good exercise, definitely sleep. Those are sort of the big key, hydration, all of that. And then there are certain conditions that really do require some medication, some Western medication. Now, the thing is that sometimes people want to get off their medication, like, no matter what, I want to get off my medication. And that's fine if you're willing to do the work that it takes. But sometimes it's like, for example, I have high blood pressure. And that came as a surprise to me. And I've done, because I don't eat processed food. I don't, I eat well, I exercise regularly all the time, and I sleep really well and all that. And so there's not any, and I didn't realize that I was eating as much salt as I was, because I don't add salt to my food, but I was eating a lot of cheese, which has a lot of salt in it. And so just changing those things, but even all of that didn't bring my blood pressure down. So instead of having to take more medication, I'd rather take the medication that I'm on and do my best to keep taking care of myself. Because sometimes when people have high blood pressure, for example, they go on one, and then they go on two, then they go on three. Sometimes they're on 4 medications. The idea about the medications is that it's not that our body is missing that nutrient, and so we need to supplement it. That's not it. But it just it just manages the symptoms. It does not get to the root cause. And sometimes that's all we can do is to manage the symptoms.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a really short break, and then I would love to talk a little bit more about what one would expect if they came to see you as a health coach. Okay? So we'll be right back. See you in a few.
Okay.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, thesatyacenter, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series, January 31st through April 4th. Embrace nonviolence every day with our 64 unique video meditations. Join us at 6 a.m. Mountain Time or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. Featuring a collection of New Thought voices, the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series. Only on New Thought Media Network, January 31st through April 4th.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back. I'm back with my friend Elaine Louise Stewart. And so we were talking about a lot of things. I'd like to know who would be a candidate to work with you as a health coach, because I know you do, you're a naturopathic doctor in Arizona.
Yes.
And online you do health coaching. So who would be your ideal client? Who's a good candidate to work with you?
Well, my ideal client is a lot like me. And it's women who are 60 and above, who are really looking at, they've probably been through some kind of a change, like maybe they're in retirement now or looking at retirement, or left a spouse or family, or their children have, grown and gone away. And so now they're looking at this next stage of their life and saying, well, what's next for me? And I just, from my own experience, what I really want to do is I imagine myself at the end of my life, and I want to know, did I live the life that I really wanted to live? And so that's really the question. What I really do is help women to become their full, get to their full potential, become their full selves, because especially in this last or next phase of their life, because, for me, I have more road behind me than in front of me. And it's time now. It's time to stop sitting on the fence or stop holding back, or or stop living a life that you've been sort of told or shaped to live, and live your own life. Have the courage to live your own life. And so how do we do that? First, we have to get rid of, we have to identify roadblocks and things that hold us back. And I know for me, there was a lot of stuff holding me back. And it wasn't easy to make change. So that's my ideal client. Somebody who is really wanting to really create the rest of their life by design instead of by default.
Beautiful. So we'll circle back to working with you. But as you were talking about all of that and your ideal client, and it would be someone like you, I was thinking about your book. And you sent this to me a couple of months ago, and congratulations, by the way. It's just such a beautiful book, and really gave me a lot more insight into you and what you've been through. And also what I love about your book, it doesn't only share your story and particular aspects of maybe where you struggled. You also, it's very, the tagline is transform your relationship with fear. And part of the transformation process in this book is that you have at the end of each chapter a little heading for reflection. So you lead people through a way that they can reflect on what was the content of the previous chapter, and then an inner check-in and a practice. And also you ask them to do some journaling about their own feelings and their own experiences of whatever was discussed in that particular chapter. And so you are supporting people with not only some tools to help them create that next chapter and transform, but also reflecting back on how things became the way they are. And so you've developed these practices of reflection and going inside and checking your feelings and your thoughts. And so can you share a little bit about that, your book, the writing of it, and how you came to develop these practices, and how that's helped you in creating this chapter? I'm not going to call it the last chapter, but this chapter of your life in living by design versus living by default.
Mm-hmm. Well, I never in my life would I have thought I was ever going to write a book. I mean, that was just like, come on, what for? I don't have anything to say, but I was in a business coaching program, and part of it was to write a book, and so I did. And as I was writing it, and particularly going through the editing and all of that, I realized that it was an opportunity for me to revisit my life and to really see what was happening at that time, and instead of just kind of living through it and getting through it and whatever. So what I was trying to do with the things at the end, I didn't come up with those practices. I mean, in terms of journaling and meditation, I mean, those are things that everyone does, but they were tools that I used that helped me really become aware of what was happening, because as you know, we can't fix anything that we're not aware of. And so much, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, which is in the head triad, and also they're very fear-based, and the 6 is the most fear-based. And when I learned that I was a 6, about what that meant, it was like, oh my God, now I understand why I was so reactive so much of my life. Now, I mean, I had a pretty happy life. I mean, it wasn't like, wasn't horrible, but whenever something was confusing to me or scary to me or challenging to me, I would react to that by getting, big energy. I don't know if you've ever seen a cat that's freaked out and their tail just goes, woof, I would get like that. And sometimes I would be really angry, and that anger would not be because I was angry, but because I was pushing people away. And it's just having gone through that experience and really understanding it and allowing myself to forgive myself and to say, wait, this is something that came naturally to me. And now that I understand it, now that I know what's going on, I can do something about it. And that came about through journaling and through meditation and family history, looking back at generational fear and all of that. And it really has, as a result of that, I've really changed my relationship with fear. So it'll never go away. And of course, fear is something that is naturally with us all the time anyway. But for a 6, I have looked back on my life and seen how much I have held myself back because of fear and doubt. And in writing the book, I sort of let go of some of that and really understood that I am the gift in my life. We all are, right? I mean, we're all unique. We're all, and what I have to offer is from my experience and who I am and what I've been through and all of that. And so I have value and I have worth, and I really would love, especially women who are in their 60s and above, who have not questioned who they are. They really have not been living to their full potential. And the idea of coming to the end of my life and not having done that is just so, it just feels so sad and heavy. Like, I don't want that to happen. I want to not let fear stop me and just do as much as I can, and really put myself out there. And I do. And what I find is once I start, then it's easy. It's just like this idea that's been holding me back. So.
Yeah, I can see that. As you're talking about being a Enneagram leading with a type 6 and getting to this stage of your life, obviously your whole life you've been driven to some degree to learn, you have so many degrees, you've changed your career, so you've got this, that takes a lot of courage, so you have all the time, even though you're framing yourself up to be someone that's, can be overwhelmed with fear. I just want to acknowledge all the things that you've done that for many that also experience fear would find that to be extremely challenging, to learn that much, to go through that much training and education, and to recreate yourself, reinvent yourself at the age you are today. It's just been in the last couple of years, I'm thinking that you're now putting yourself out there as a health coach, which is radically different than working in an institution as a nutritionist or managing a department or whatever it was you were doing 20, 30, 40 years ago. So you had some fears, but for some of us, it doesn't sound like they really got in your way of getting to where you are now. I know that your own experience of that would say otherwise, but so what have you overcome today where you are based on what you used to have anxiety or fear or anger about? What are you able to, what have you done, faced, and what have you conquered in terms of this fear? With this work that you're currently doing?
Well, I would say, first of all, that alongside of the fear, I have a lot of courage. And I will say that I didn't recognize it. I mean, it's like the saying, look, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So there's nothing special about me. There's nothing this or that. Um, and I just took a lot of it for granted. But when I really understood how much courage I had and I have, um, then I can at least I feel good about that, and I let that come forward. And as far as working with these women, what I really um, want to do is help them see what is their personality type, what things have held them back. Because once we understand about what type we lead with, there's so much information there that and people, I expect people would say things like, oh, now I understand, now I get it. One of the women who has gone through the program, um, we did a typing, and she also is a 6. And being able to let her know, okay, so these are things that someone who leads as a 6 usually has to deal with, a lot of doubt, a lot of fear, and then holding on to negative self-talk, all this stuff from the past. And it's interesting because her first question to me before we got there was, who am I now? I'm retired. I'm not this corporate person anymore. I'm not a spouse anymore. My husband has passed away. My children are grown. Who am I? What I've been living my life for somebody else for so long. I don't know who I am. And just being able to help her kind of walk through some of that and let go of some of the things from the past. Yeah, it's been really fulfilling to me to be able to help her and the other women who've gone through the program too. But that was just a sort of a stark example.
Yeah, maybe you could give us an example of someone else that isn't a 6. How has the program that you offer affected someone other than a 6?
Well, I can tell you about a 9. A 9, a type 9 on the Enneagram is a peacemaker. This is somebody who avoids conflict at all costs. And what has become clear is this particular person doesn't really take herself seriously. Like her own, like what she wants in her life. Will always take a backseat to somebody else just because it's easier to go along to get along, and her her agenda is not important. It's like whatever. But she's been able to turn that around a little bit, and now she's thinking, okay, well, what are some activities that I would really like to do, and really exploring that. And this is something that she's never done before. I mean, everybody comes first, and for a 9, that's fine. That's not like, it's fine.
Right.
Because there's no conflict and everybody's happy and all of that. But, just never taking care of herself, never putting herself first. So that was an opportunity to help her understand from her type how she's been living her life.
So your program, what are some of the other elements of what you offer? So you help people understand their Enneagram type and support them in that discovery.
Yes. Well, it's a 6-week program, and we're really going, the first thing we want to talk about is self-talk, because I don't know about you, but for me, my self-talk is really harsh and punishing. And I think for most people it is. And helping people understand where that came from, and whose voice is that, and then how to change it. Because one of the things that I've been able to do is to really change my negative self-talk, which is automatic. It's just automatic, and sometimes I don't even know that I'm doing it. It's just driving me. is that when I can change and say, yes, you can do it. Everything is okay. Everything is good, and to supportive self-talk, it changes everything. I mean, it really changes everything. And then obviously with the Enneagram, we can look at behavior patterns and patterns that were developed in infancy and childhood and, teenage years that worked at the time to keep them safe, but those strategies don't work as adults anymore. And so how to weed through some of that, and then how to really look at some of the trauma and the pain from the past, because we all have some little trauma at least. I mean, if anybody went to high school, there's no way you can get out of that scarred. But so sometimes the trauma is small, sometimes it's very big. So we go through some of that process to try to release some of that without reliving it. And then really looking at experiences and saying, really understanding, really as bad as it seems, or is it really a lesson? Is there something you can learn here? What is something positive that you can get out of this so that you can stop punishing yourself for it or whatever. So it's really just trying to get the roadblocks out of the way so that people can start to move forward and really allow their creativity and their joy to come through.
Beautiful. So for those of you that are listening to the audio, you're not able to see the video which we're showing, and my producer has been sharing your website with us periodically throughout this conversation. Is that how people can contact you, is through your website? And what is the name of your website?
Well, the website is ElaineLStewart.com. And that's the name of it. And it's about really transforming your life and your health, because once you've cleared away the sort of the detritus from the past, and you find your own internal motivation, your own internal voice. And when you do that, it really makes taking care of yourself in your health and your life very different, because you really take responsibility for that. And it's not to say that you still, you might need some guidance and stuff, but at least you're not in resistance to somebody else out there telling you what to do. That I think is a big issue. But yes, going to my website is great. I have a free questionnaire with 20 questions that it's just like, where are you in your life? Are you happy with your life right now? It's just yes, no, and you fill it out, privacy of your own home. You don't have to share it with anybody. But I think it's an opening for somebody to say, yeah, I am really satisfied with my life, or no, maybe not. Maybe there's another option for me. So,
well, it sounds like you're doing some really amazing work with women. I'd like to ask you a few questions that I ask my guests, and I'd like you to finish the statement that I'm about to say. So the first one is, I am. How would you end that thought? I am.
I'm excited and I'm passionate about my future, about my now and my future.
Beautiful. My vision is?
My vision is to live my life to the absolute fullest and to help as many women as I can do the same.
That's beautiful. Relationships are?
Relationships are amazing. They are a great growth opportunity.
True. My philosophy.
More than that?
Wait, say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was it?
No, say that. I did. The video cut out for a minute. I'll go on to the next one. My philosophy is?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I've really ever thought about that. But I think that now, today, my philosophy is that everybody lives their life the way they have a right to. And for me, I have an opportunity to let go of, again, some shadow stuff, judgment, judgment, my own biases, my own prejudices, and just, let it be.
Let it be. And if you could sit with someone like a master, a guru, someone historically, or someone that you admire in your line of work or in the world, what would you ask them, or what would you want to know from them?
Boy, that's a really great question. Not one I've ever considered before. I guess I'd want to know, what was their journey? What took them from being, and I'm going to use this, unenlightened to being enlightened, and for whatever that, what was for me, there's been a lot of bumps that I feel like I have to go over, and what was that path for them? I would love to learn more about that and my own path.
And my last question is, the growing edge is, what is the growing edge for you?
The growing edge for me is really putting myself out there and allowing myself to be seen and heard, and so that I can really do the work that I want to do, which is really help other women grow themselves.
Well said. Well, you're doing that. You're doing that right now as we're having this conversation, because I know that this conversation will reach the ears and the hearts and the minds of the people that need it. So thank you so much for being here on Growing Edge Live with me, Elaine. It's been a real joy to not only prepare and read your book, but to actually have this conversation with you, to go deep and to understand who you are and why you're doing what you're doing and why that's so important to you. And I encourage you to spread your wings and fly. And I can only imagine all of the women and the people connected to those women that you will affect in a positive way, and the lives that will be uplifted because of you. So thank you.
Allie, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this, and it's been a great opportunity for me. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And thank you everyone for being with us today. I look forward to seeing you next week. I have another friend. My friend Mary Hampton is joining me on Growing Edge Live next week. Peace and blessings. Lots of love to you wherever you are. You're not alone. We're here for you at the very edge. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.